This is AV SuperFriends Off the Rails, an almost regularly scheduled open discussion on audio and video in higher education. We'll sound off about our most brilliant ideas, our dumbest mistakes, and everything in between. And because this conversation will almost certainly go off the rails at some point, we'll end up covering just about everything else. And now, the AV SuperFriends. For December 8th, 2023, it's the best sounding podcast in higher ed AV. This is the AV SuperFriends Off the Rails, broadcasting live to tape from coast to coast, easternmost to westernmost, northernmost to southernmost, gate post to hitching post. I'm your local host who can boast the most milquetoast and utmost humility. I'm Chris Decter, and it's time for another Friday afternoon podcast adventure. And let's say hello to today's panel of august AV SuperFriends. Today, I'm joined by a principal optimization executive from Kansas City, Jamie Reinhardt.
A Poe.
Something like that. An interactive an interactive tactics technician from Corvallis, Oregon, Mark Kolozinski.
It's got
a
bit of a something to it.
Yeah.
A relational identity analyst from Greensboro, North Carolina, Larry Darling.
I like that job. I actually want it.
And an internal functionality manager from Bowling Green, Kentucky, Justin Rexing.
Don't call me names.
Too late.
That's an internal issue.
Just internal only.
Only internal. So on today's show, we're going to discuss documenting contract requirements for AV integrators so we get what we actually want.
Sounds riveting.
And items that caught us off guard this year. But first, let's do the news.
The news.
And today's article comes from Educause and was written by three-time visitor to the or guest of the show. How many times was John on this show?
I was thinking about the same question. I'm like, I don't,
a lot.
At least once, and probably twice, and maybe
at least twice.
Time. It's been multiple.
Yeah.
I thought
we'll
just
say
once.
friend of the show, Jon Dorbolo from Oregon State University,
yeah.
and a colleague of his, Eric Johns, and it's basically about teaching and learning in the round. So the title of the article, Collaboration for Teaching and Learning in the Round, case study. And John, he's been working on this for years. We'll have him back on to talk about it, but he basically dives deep on all the schools who have built round classrooms and how well those work compared to, for lack of a better term, a traditionally shaped classroom.
I was wondering how, they would teach in the round if you had to say a sentence and the next person had to start two words later.
It takes a lot of coordination.
Classes have to be scheduled for a longer time, which is one of the things he talks about in here.
It's a lot of row your boats. It just keeps on going. So
cool.
But I mean, the foundation is the geometry of learning in that project. And Oregon State got into that project when we took delivery of this massive building I'm in, Learning Innovation Center, lots of non-typical teaching spaces, I guess, rooms and like round rooms, oblong rooms, no front classrooms, parliamentary shaped classrooms for those overseas.
Football.
Yeah, if it's big football or a squished round room.
So it's parliament if you're overseas, but if you're overseas, football means something different. So that's now back to round. So you've just made it worse, Larry.
Yeah,
stadium style.
Rugby.
I like stadium style terminology here.
It doesn't have to be stadium style.
But there's always those questions early on when you go down these like new configurations. Like, well, does it work? Does it help? Does it do what you think it's going to do? And at the onset, we didn't have a lot of good science to go on. There was very few institutions that actually had built these types of rooms, and so that sparked this whole research mission. How do we find out how students are either achieving or not achieving in classes, and what does it mean? And so we dove into really looking at spatially, like where students are moving. Does that correlate with their grades and their outcomes, where they sit, and all this? It was a lot going on, and we mapped a lot of spaces. And so this first published piece is kind of starting to show some of that stuff actually come to fruition and where the actual data means. And I know if John was here, his term would probably be, we haven't done academic harm, which is a good thing. We have not made things worse, right? And so, because it's hard, and there was a lot of hoops to jump through when we start talking about publications of student data, right? It's very guarded. You can't just kind of put that stuff out. So it was a grueling process to actually get folks to be a part of this, and kind of track over multiple years to actually aggregate this. Just anybody who's done research and involving students, you know the the painstaking pieces you have to go through to get that and the clearance. And so for this to come to this point where he's actually published, this is actually I'm stoked for Jon to actually put it out there and kind of start to share some of the findings of that. I mean, I'm interested in kind of what your all feedback may be on kind of what you'd seen in this. Larry, I know you have some, maybe you are interested in these kind of things. You came here when we opened this building and you saw some of this stuff firsthand.
Yeah, I was there shortly after you opened it, and I was really impressed by the space. I was impressed by the intimacy of a room that seats that many people. The fact, there's that eye connection you can make with the person in the back row, because the back row isn't that far away anymore. So that was really cool. And what struck me was the intentionality of the way the presentations were being developed, because it is a much different method of presenting your slides. You can't just throw PowerPoint up there and expect it to captivate the audience. And I sat through one of the courses, and it was just really impressive, the amount of development that went into her, I believe it was a biology course, and the instructional designer had worked really diligently, hand in hand with the instructor, and it was captivating.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is the folks that use these rooms, it is well choreographed, right? I mean, there's a lot of time and energy they've put into that, and while there is we call it like the launching point in the middle of that room, a lectern, so to speak. Very few instructors just hang out and sit at that lectern, right? They are actively moving around that room, and some of the findings, even in Jon's paper, you'd see kind of the different zones and the accessibility that students have to faculty is very important to their outcomes in that and what they do in their classes, and kind of we're starting to see some of that mapping, right? And we kind of had this T-zone effect, like students that were in the front row and then along the actual exit corridor where they could get up and move and be a part of it and could track, typically have these better grades. And so you're starting to see some of that in there. So what do you do? How do you create more of these zones? Well, you make it round, right? We have a lot more of front row, so to speak, and then make it so that no students further than 8 or 9 rows back. So I can literally have a conversation in the room. And so, it really wasn't about technology. That's not really the focus of what this publication is. It's really about you can do different spaces that do not have to just be big squares or rectangles and have a fair amount of success. And I like that because that gives us the opportunity to look at spaces differently, where we can augment and add more to that experience through the technology and kind of keep building on that. And it's not just a big round empty room. There's more to it. And so, yeah.
Another aspect I thought was really interesting is the whole concept was about, we're putting the instructor in the middle, but yet the fact that the students can look across and see other students, it really brings that conversational aspect to the room, and you can have some really powerful discourses, student to student, peer to peer, in that space.
Yeah, I don't think it was in this paper that one of the conversations we have with Jon, he speaks to the immediate accountability that happens, right? And that you don't have people acting out in the back of the room like you would in a large theater or whatever that is, because everybody can see everybody else. They know. So every student there is accountable for their actions immediately with the rest of the students, right? And so, there's a bit of this civic behavior kind of takes place in there, where it also fosters conversation. The fact that everybody's in front of you, you can have a conversation with every other student in that room. And you have 500 people in the room. You'd think, oh, that'd be impossible. You could never do it. But I could sit there and have a conversation with you directly across, because the nature of the room, it's round. Our voices carry very well. The screens are actually kind of a big tiered gumdrop, and kind of
Project Gumdrop.
Yeah, it actually reflects the audio back into the room. So it's really interesting without having speech lift and a lot of that. So it's a very big space that actually does not require a whole lot of technology to actually have success in the room. So fun space. Shameless plug, if you're out here for Northwest Met, you'll see it. I'll take you there. We'll experience it.
I thought you said we were going to tour every room but that one.
You are going to be servicing every single room, Chris. I have a sheet that you're going to go through.
Tickets?
Yep. Yeah, we had a lot of tickets that you didn't get done when you left. So
got some.
I'm really
room checks to
interested
do.
in all the little square rooms that you have.
That look like high school?
Mark, you should do that. I'm just going to bring that up, and everyone listening right now it'll get spoiled. But start the tour on like a typical, boring, regular, like 30-year-old square room.
So here's a room.
Yep.
Here's our medium level room with concrete walls and hard floors, and
It's got to have
This
VGA
here's the
somewhere.
finest of
lights.
cinder block.
So yeah, if you want to see these rooms in action and you want to tour them, Northwest Met is going on here at Oregon State University. Jon Dorbolo will be there if you want to tour and talk about this actual article. It is the week of March 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th in there in the year of 2024. So come on out. It's going to be a good time. A lot of technology, a lot of presentations from manufacturers. It's great. So it will be happening here on our campus, and I will be there hosting. So come along.
only come if you want to work hard and close.
Yeah, if you want to close
or
tickets with
support
Chris.
tickets. Yeah.
Chris left a lot of tickets here.
Logging right back in, and we'll take care of those.
We'll just pick up where you left off, and so
I just left them on hold.
yeah, they're waiting. I'm waiting for some responses. Some of them are quite old, Chris.
A couple people are getting a little upset there. Are you going to get me that adapter or not?
I'm waiting. I'm here.
All right, so link is in the description here to John's article. Lots of interesting information in here. Lots of schools who are building these spaces.
Yeah.
I still think, and correct me if you know otherwise, but I'm pretty sure that the one at OSU is still the largest.
It might be.
classroom.
I'm not sure if the one in Texas is close. That one came pretty close. Maybe it's slightly.
It's one seat fewer. So, maybe. But anyway, there's. If not, if it's not the largest, it's very close to the largest. Yeah. A lot of schools have built smaller ones. When I was at IU, we did one there that was smaller, it was like 150 seats sort of thing. And it was one of the challenges with building a non-traditional, but building an oddly shaped room is it eats up a lot of square footage that could be otherwise used for other things. And facilities and architects kind of hate doing that because their square footage stuff gets all messed up.
Their linear equations fall apart.
Yeah. So,
if you're doing one of these rooms, you find yourself
use pi r squared.
Looking at some of the things. Give me a call. Shoot me an email. I will tell you what not to do. Things that work. And
I was going to say, that first year this was open was rough.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, and it'll play into the next segment of our show a little bit. Is kind of when you have people delivering things for you and what that may mean.
Well, and I did want to clarify, it was rough both because there were some technology issues, but there were some general like teaching and learning usability. Yes. It takes you time to grow into it, and the advantage of these now having existed for about 10 years now is we have people like John who have done research on that and can like help you improve. So if you're out there listening and you have a round room discussion happening somewhere at your campus, yes, definitely contact Mark and John, and they can give you some tips and tricks and pointers. So
it's like we're going to make a sport, but instead of deciding what it is, we're going to make the field first, and then when we get there, we'll figure out what we're going to play.
That sounds like a great idea. It's the field of dreams method of
That's
building
exactly
a classroom.
what it was. Yep.
We have made this. You figure it out.
Have success.
All right. Take a quick break. Come back. We're going to talk about working with contractors and integrators and making sure that what you get at the end is what you said that you wanted, and making sure things are done the way you want them done.
Hey, y'all, it's December. You know what that means.
It's time to turn back my clock.
That was last month, man.
Yo.
Oh, God, no. It's time for the second annual AVSF Live Holiday Spectacular.
We can't announce it that way. Chris, can you do a version of some sort of announcer voice or something?
Come on.
Join the AV SuperFriends on Friday, December 15th at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific for our annual Holiday Spectacular. It's like a really bad office Christmas party, but online, so worse.
And we want all of you to help us celebrate.
This year, instead of a gift exchange, we decided to do a photo exchange.
Yes! No filters.
Not those type of photos, Jamie. We want to see your build rooms, your work rooms, your Santa's workshop, so to speak.
The rooms where all the magic happens.
Oh, and now we're talking.
Still not those type of photos, Jamie.
Oh. Okay. Well, then from one hoarder to another, I also want to see everyone's terrible, overflowing storage rooms. The room's chock full of piles of old stuff. It's still good. Things you just can't get rid of, and all of the unused gear from the stuff you just took out of projects. You know, your storage room of shame. Your secret shame.
Yeah, that's weird, Jamie. Just send in your photos of storage rooms and build rooms. They could be good photos or bad photos, and we'll still show them on the show.
And we'll have some special live guests on to help us review those photos.
And we'll get the winner a prize.
Prize? Wait. There's no prize.
Yeah, we just announced it. Sure we do.
No, you just made that up. But I guess we have some AVS SuperFriends swag, so we'll get you something.
Yeah, it works for me.
Send your photos via email to mailbag@avsuperfriends.com or DM them to us on Twitter or LinkedIn, and we need those by Wednesday, December 13th. If you want to stay anonymous and hide your awful, awful shame, that's fine. Just let us know in the email and we'll keep it secret, keep it safe. Otherwise, we'll assume you want to proudly show off your brightly lit, supremely organized, top-of-the-line build rooms. And join us for our second annual AVSF Live Holiday Spectacular, December 15th, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific at avsf.live. Man, that Christmas party sounds fun. I want to go to that.
I'm going to be there. Maybe, if I can get off.
Yeah, I've got to work that day. So, all right. So, first topic today. We phrased this, or we not phrased this. We described how we were going to discuss this a few days ago, and then Mark came in with both barrels today because he's dealing with this exact scenario. So it may take a turn.
I'm
but
living this.
This
Yeah,
is
I will
why
do my
you do
best.
everything in house.
Yes. So the question here, or the discussion topic here, is when working with contractors and integrators, because as much of us, to your point, Justin, as much of us who do all this stuff in-house whenever possible, we do work with contractors and integrators at times. How do we ensure that what we're getting delivered is what we're supposed to be getting delivered? How do we workshop, or how do we write up the language for our agreements, our contracts? How do we ensure that things are being put together the way we want, and that when we say we want this to be a turnkey handover, whether we're doing programming or not, that it's either ready for us to load program or it's ready for the end users to walk right in and use it on day one? But it sounds like maybe we need to switch that a little bit and say, like, how do we get these people to be on the same page with us? Because I think a lot of times they're going to come in and do it their way regardless. And that can be a multi-year lift when working with an integrator to get them to understand what we're looking for.
I think there's a lot of culture change happening in real time with integration firms and contractors right now. Their success 10 years ago is not success now, but they may have not been told that. And so what's easy for them to do is not necessarily what's correct for them to do in an enterprise environment now. And so that's where my interest in this conversation really was. There was a time when I would say, deliver it, build it, program it, set it up so that if I walk in the room, the thing turns on and we're good. If all of a sudden, if what you put on my user interface I can do, then we're successful.
Let me ask a stupid question.
But that's not true. Go ahead.
Do you think what we're seeing
That's a
is
stupid
based
question.
upon, well, do you think what we're seeing is based upon the technology of what we're doing is outpacing their skill sets?
I don't know.
Because
I don't
really
know.
the crutch of what we're talking about here is a lot of network-based stuff
It
on
is.
an enterprise environment.
I'd beg to differ,
My
Justin. I'm
integrators
seeing this
that I
on
talk to
non-network stuff.
do not know how to do any of that.
Well, I think
ever.
that's part of it. I think it's not one thing here, and it does start at the very, very beginning, at that initial conversation. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit before that. Typically, we do everything in-house. We have a space, a building, it's a project that's a departure for us, that we are like, you know what? Let's go down the road and let's take this thing and have it delivered soup to nuts for us. What does it mean? So that we can identify how we need to work with outside contractors, because let's face it, we're going to be doing more of that no matter what. So where can we find efficiency? What does it mean? But all the things I was really, really concerned with, I'm still really, really, really concerned with, because they're not getting to where I need them to be. And it's in the minutia. Spoiler alert, it's not the stuff. It's not how the stuff is installed. That is not what I'm talking about. Larry, go ahead.
Can I argue Justin's point just a little bit?
Yes, you can always argue with Justin. Jump on him. Go.
No, I'm actually arguing. I'm in support with Justin a little bit here.
Oh, wait a
What?
minute.
But-
Then no.
Which is weird,
Then definitely
but we're on
not.
the same page. But I'm curious because of the way how tight profit margins for integrators doing work in higher ed has always been. They've had to staff it a certain way. They've had to set certain expectations. We're moving beyond that as far as deliverables go at this point.
Right. And it's not, I don't think it's well grokked and baked in their bid packages yet. Like there's additional knowledge work that we're expecting them to do that I don't think they historically have had the opportunity to really bid.
Are we willing as an institution then to eat that much more profit per job? Like, are we going to enable them to staff it the right way to do this?
No. We have to realign our resources.
We are.
So here's what I mean by this. We talked about this on our show. We talked about the knowledge labor and the manual labor.
Right.
I go back to, I think the solution is we all have the solution in our heads of what we want. We work with our colleagues a lot to provide those solutions for our campus. Now, if you don't have the manpower or the women power to install something at a scale level, maybe you can create an RFP to where integrators can bid on labor only. And they're not providing a solution. They're actually working with you to expand your own resources, because at the end of the day, if you have a building of 30 classrooms and 20 of them are the same, one programmer can knock that out pretty quickly. And if you have an in-house programmer, that's not terrible.
Well, so I think that's
for that one programmer or that one knowledge labor person to support a bunch of installers.
Before that, that would be the easy part. Programming 30 rooms the same is the easy.
Well, I'm just looking at the project from start to end.
So here's
separating that knowledge labor and the manual labor.
Yeah, and we can go down the road, but here's I want to get some specifics. We've been a bit nebulous kind of as to what's going on here. So where I'm seeing some of the friction, right, is like every project goes out, gets subcontracted to another subcontractor and another subcontractor and another subcontractor. So I have electrical contractors putting boxes in place, right? Another contractor coming in, wiring, yet another contractor coming in, then doing programming configuration, right? And so it's not a one-stop shop. It's all like a fine example of our financial system that we have in front of us. And so then like the core concept of, okay, we need some IP addresses to make this all work. And so I get somebody who didn't even do the install or whatever it may be saying, hey, I need like 400 IP addresses. Let me get those. And that should raise red flags right there that kind of ask comes through, right? And so here I am now having to have a wholesale conversation about how DHCP works. And
that
how our campus
tells you what Larry and I are talking about, that they're not ready for the technology.
Yeah. But, well, see, and I'm not sure. What I'm wondering, and because I run into this occasionally, because like you, Mark, we don't hire out very often. But we have set this standard, and we are, to Justin's point, we are knowledge workers. Not all of our peers are. And a lot of the customers that some of these integrators have, they don't care. They just want it to come in and work. So if it's on an island network and it just sits there and it really just turns on when you hit the green button, perfect. That's all they want. But we're a little bit more discerning than that. We want it to be what we want. And we want it to, maybe we want it to reach to the enterprise. Maybe we just want one port to reach to the enterprise. Something, right? We want access somehow.
We all have our quirks, to Jamie's
yeah, there's
point.
cultural
That's
differences.
what we need in our systems based upon the cultures that are unique.
Those quirks are called specifications.
Yes.
And I think that even no matter how much we specify, they are absolutely not used to delivering that kind of thing. And so it's not that they don't know what they're doing. I think they
do.
I think that they have a limited amount of those knowledge workers, and they're stretching them very thin. They do have knowledge workers. Yeah. And most of the time, just like us, just to your example, I've got one, just an example. I've got one programmer. He's got to do 30 rooms. Great. Turn him loose. Okay, but what if you had to do 30 rooms in another building across town tomorrow? Do you have one programmer that can do that? And so that's where I think they're getting stretched
Sounds like you
thin.
Need a new PM. You need a new project.
They're getting
manager.
a little stretched thin, and they got to make a profit. Look, we're not making profits here. And I do try to give them the benefit of the doubt. But when we get to specifications, when we get into our expectations of the deliveries, it's like that part, we've normally said we're going to give you the IP tables.
Right.
And then they go, oh no, we did it on our own. See, that's not good enough. We told you you're going to do it to our specification. And then there's like this headbutting contest.
And it's in
your
writing. Signature's
and
right
I think
here.
That's what is the most annoying here, is that you've had all of these agreements, but they still want to do it the way they did for a law firm XYZ down the road, because they want to be in and out and moving on to the next paid gig.
I think it's the goal's different, right? Like that outside organization, they're like, oh, we did this, we're going to do this. Our goal is to put the stuff in, make it work, and like, look at their punch sheet. It's like they want to get paid when I can go in there. Like their commissioning is it turns on, it turns off. I'm like,
it's a substantially complete nightmare.
That is
right?
not,
like,
you are not done.
Good enough.
It's not.
Well,
done.
and I did want to raise that point, Mark, that I think, let's just say generically pre-COVID, because I think COVID was a delineation point. Prior to that, because things have moved on, there's been newer technologies and whatnot, but even prior to that, we weren't doing, what do we call it? Video conference capable, collaboration capable spaces everywhere. So as long as they delivered a very straightforward room that makes picture and sound, that's probably good enough, because you're using baseband for transport. You're the one or two devices on the network. You're like, oh, okay, I'll fix that real quick for you. It's not a huge deal. So they're able to knock those out at scale. And Larry, to your point, they're able to bid lower on those because they don't need the significant level of expertise from every person doing the job. They have maybe their lead installer, or maybe they've got their site supervisor or their project managers there, and then they've got 5 or 6 technicians who are installing stuff, and it's straightforward and easy enough. So we've seen technology march on. We've seen our requirements change. And then we've talked about it, we've seen the internal IT staff sophistication improve dramatically in the last few years, I hope. So now we're more discerning. We have more specific requirements. And it's not just a matter of, you can't just plug that into the network. You can't just set it all up on your own little, Justin, to your point, you bring this all the time, your little router you went down and got at Best Buy and then plugged it in, because that doesn't fly. And Jamie, you're exactly right. You can get away with that doing 3 conference rooms at the law firm down the street, but I need the 3 rooms you're doing for my law school to be exactly the same capability as the 37 rooms in my College of Business, as the 48 rooms in the College of Engineering, and they all have to talk to my enterprise environment the same way. I can't have weird island unicorns out there. Right. And I think that encompasses like all these different facets of
that's a shift,
the challenge we're having, that if they haven't moved on and they're still operating as if it's 2017, it ain't going to work.
And I find that some of them, there's a disconnect about what and how things are used and what we do with them than what they think they are used for. For instance, I had it was a related school who hired an integrator to come in, and they did our island network, which is fine. It just was working, except that they put a Pearl Mini in there to stream out some of the special event content. Mm-hmm. It never touched the real internet capable network. And they were like, oh yeah, it works great. See, you can start your stream, you can stop your stream. It's wonderful. And we went,
they're missing the piece of streaming.
Well, how does it go to YouTube?
Oh, so like just a counter started going.
Yeah, it just keeps going in a circle.
and we're like, and I get sometimes I have early on, we have conversations with, if it's a consultant or an architect, and say, that's not really how people teach anymore. Oh, yeah, there's this disconnect between and some of the, and we just talked about the room and the round, right? We have different teaching styles and requirements as well. I think one of the biggest challenges is, how do we notate our unique requirements? I mean,
getting into that nitty gritty of the network, like where the ports go, what are my assignments? Because I'm flat across the board. Like I don't do naming convention programming. Like I anti that. I will not allow that. And so in that
You guys don't do host names?
We don't do host names for.
Here's the best part about using host names.
Nope.
Some devices do host names and other devices
Right.
don't. So enjoy
And so,
that.
but that was like,
Yeah, I don't.
They
that drives
had-
me
they-
crazy
they
when they're
farm
like,
it
"Well, I
out.
just put the host name in." It doesn't always resolve, you jackass.
Right.
Thanks.
and so it's little things like that, right? And we've had lots of conversation. It was very well documented at the onset of the project, but it just didn't trickle down all the time into execution. But where does it go? I've asked the contractor, can you please give me like your documents so I can follow how you have your network laid out, because you didn't do what we told you to do, and so now we have to figure out what's going on, right? And so is that now for me to have to then regenerate a document set and say, no, it needs to be like this when we've already paid them to generate a document set? So it's now here we are like having to like micromanage what we've already paid to get done. And arguably some of it's on me. It obviously is. I have to check it. And here we are. I'm in the process of making this right.
Well, and to be fair, that's where this conversation started.
Right.
We all have these challenges, but this is one of your scenarios of like, hey, we have this challenge. How should we be documenting this so it is done appropriately and I don't have to backfill?
Right. I think that's the challenge.
But listen to us. We all have documented the shit out of everything. And what do we all do? We all complain about consultants. So we documented things to consultants, and then they put that documentation in their bid spec. And let's say they screw it up. Fine.
No, they don't.
We have to fix it. We have to do it. Chris, you're the one who says, well, the consultant screwed it up. I'm just going to have to go fix it myself. We've all said this. We've been doing this for years. This is no different. It's just another layer on top of this bullshit, which is why...
It wouldn't be so bad, but we're so strapped for labor resources ourselves right now.
Yes.
I don't have the time to go back and migrate a whole building worth of IP space, like 600 endpoints. I don't have the bandwidth to go do that and then have to reprogram, recommission everything afterwards. Right.
So
because of
do you think that? So I've always used the everything has to be run by me generic line. Like everything, it's all over the drawing, the architectural drawings. It's all over the spec book. It's all over the specs.
Does it work? Because I've tried that and it never works.
Well, in the past, the few times that I've used it in the past, I've been able to use
here's the trick, Jamie and Larry. You have to go write it inside the stalls of the men's rooms. That's where people apparently.
I haven't written it there.
I just put it in the women's room, but then I get run out because I'm in. But anyway,
it's 2023, man.
That's a different problem, Jamie.
So. But are we at the point where we have to now take that extra step and actually over document?
Yes.
I think
exactly.
You would be better off, and you guys can yell at me if you want. I would think you'd be better off at restructuring your process and just bring that in house and then keep that documentation in house, because
we usually do.
It's not going to succeed.
Yeah,
so your stance is
never
rely on outside integrators to do knowledge labor. Is that what you're saying?
I can't do that.
Exactly.
I would love to take that step, and typically 9 times out of 10 we do. There's gonna be that time when we can't, and so how do we get that right?
I don't
what are we
think there
focusing
is.
on?
I think
it's that occasional one. Or if you're not lucky like us and can bring it in the house, how do we make sure we get what we want?
And Justin, for a summer upcoming, not this one, but I think it's next summer, I have a new library renovation, a new building going up, and I have my usual replacement cycle all in the same 3 months. There's no way my staff can do that.
Would Greensboro win the lottery or something? Did you get that $1 million tag?
Bad timing.
Wait.
It's all the Darling. It's the Darling Library and
it's bad timing. Like they all got delayed and now they're there.
Justin, I think we all agree with you, but there are. I think we all agree.
Knowledge labor in house for the last 15 years.
You guys are an exception who have managed to do all, including your capital projects, in house. And I think we all applaud that. But
we don't have bigger staff resources than you all.
No, I'm not saying you do. I'm saying right now our PM shop at OSU at large has an appetite that the internal staff cannot deliver. And their 10-year plan is going to deliver things that are well outside of our bandwidth. And so we have to bring in resources and surge somewhere. And it's just the nature of it.
Support that then.
Exactly. It has to be supportable.
Power to integrate it, you can't support it either.
No, we can support it, but we don't have
How
the
can you
labor,
support it,
the
but
cycles
not
to build it.
program it?
Keeping the lights on is a lot easier than putting the electrical wires in.
I don't need to hire a new person for every
No,
5 rooms.
Jamie, that's
not what I'm
manual
saying.
labor. I'm talking knowledge labor.
We can
Putting
support
electrical
it.
wires in is manual.
Like once it's done and it's integrated into our support system and it's all there, like that part's easy. We can scale support pretty readily, but we can't scale labor, like cycles of building things. And this is a lot of events.
I think you can scale
too.
certain types of labor pretty easily.
We can.
But is it
Especially when you
economical to do
standardize.
that? Because if you scale up for these, like my case, for instance, if I scale up for that amount of work, I can't sustain that amount of work
you're not gonna, you
long
can't keep them
term
busy
because I
all
don't
year.
have. Yeah.
I think there's a balance.
I think we're
somewhere.
missing something here. So when I go to our programmer and say, "Hey, I've got this huge building, but by the way, since you've been doing all this work this entire time, there's like 6 types of classrooms. You already done them. Oh, shouldn't be too bad. I can knock that out in a whole week."
The programming isn't the thing.
Programming is not a good example, Justin. That's not.
Then
that's
what
not
is?
So straight up configuring devices, firmware, putting them in place,
Network.
networking
Our
everything.
installers do that as they're putting them in.
Ours are not.
Yes, but if we're not installing it, if you're hiring that
Exactly.
labor out, who's configuring it all?
Right. So
That's
if
where
it
we're
was
having the
me and our
disconnect.
staff doing it, yes, they would
Knowledge
track all
labor
that as they
versus
go.
manual labor.
Right?
There's your answer.
But you have somebody that you have people that their identities, they don't know that they now are knowledge workers as well as a laborer. Just like our staffs are playing both roles. They're physically deploying, but they also are using applications in knowledge base to
Who
configure
signs
and do
off
all
on your
that.
projects when this happens? Mark, do you sign off on this
Sign
project?
off? I have no control.
Who,
like
who
that.
signs
Yeah.
the paper to get them paid? The
Oh,
integrator?
it's going to be the PMs. That's what I'm saying. That's where we are,
Yeah.
right?
And once we get to that
that's a
point,
process
we're not
change.
involved.
It's a
You need to
process.
have that signature in your lap and not the PMs. There's your fix.
Oh, it is.
Because
Here's
if
what we want to
you
do.
develop
We're
the
gonna ready to go.
specifications and you're the one who commissions it, you're running through the checklist and you're like, "Hey, you didn't do this. You don't get paid."
Right. You're
Tough.
exactly right. But they're saying, "Oh no, this is what we've been asked to do. Our contract is this." I'm saying that's cool. I'm not saying that's not your contract, but I'm telling you, you're not done until you also do these things. And they're like, "Well, that's
Which
a change."
is part
I'm
of their contract.
That's fine if you believe it's a change. It shouldn't be. It's already been documented elsewhere, but here we are. So let's get into it. And so, because I have a whole building sitting there, it's been programmed by naming convention, and they're all sitting on like dumb island network. And it's not going to be delivered that way. It'll test out in commission that way. I'm saying
sure.
it's not truly commissioned because part of the commissioning process is it must be tied into our support desk. It's not
And
going
that's
to
in
do
the
that on the
contracts.
island. Yes. And so
And if it's in the contracts and then somebody signs the paperwork to pay them, that's where it's failing.
exactly.
And that's the challenge I have is I have 10 plus years of rooms that if I go through and read what was contracted to be provided, that is not what was delivered. What was delivered was room makes picture and sound.
Whoever
What
signs
was
off on that,
I understand
they're
that.
responsible.
Here's the problem. It wasn't me, but I now inherit and own the entire fucking campus. So I have to spend the next 2 years fixing it. So
and I think
Knowledge
that's the
labor
thing.
in house.
correct.
And
wherever
if
you
you-
can do
Exactly.
it. Yes, you're absolutely 100% right.
And if you have all, and this is where we run into some of these problems. Like even if you have it all documented, and they've done it their way anyway, and you go back and say, look at the book. But once we get to this point where you've documented, you put it in the specifications, you've written it out, it's all there. And now you've pointed it out and says, you didn't actually do what we asked you to do. At that point, you're still wasting time, money, and energy just to fight to prove
It's legal now.
that you did it the first time. We all understand what you're saying. We want to keep it in-house, but we can't always do that, nor is it always our decision.
But it's my point is, what you just said, though, we're spending all this time arguing with the integrators and arguing with this. Chris, you just said we had to do it anyway. We inevitably had to fix it anyway. Why not just do it up front and be done with it the first time? You don't have to
Justin,
waste
let
time
me-
arguing with everybody.
You're absolutely
I don't
right. So
disagree.
how did this consultant thing go for you lately? I mean, that's what we're all talking
I'm
about.
about to bring that up, and this is a great conversation.
Justin,
to bring this
let me
up
paint a scenario because this happened to me this summer. I had an outside contractor doing 3 rooms. They did 3 rooms. My team did like 7. So fuck them.
So were you overseeing them, or was
yes,
that done by someone
but
else?
here's the problem.
Okay, so
The problem was not that they didn't do things in general the correct way. There was one thing they didn't do, which we had talked about at length. And when they finally delivered the space, it did not have the one thing that we had talked about significantly. But because
in the contract.
it was it was not detailed and documented feature by feature. And what I'm talking about is the auto camera tracking. I did not go in to say what each featured room would have, and that's my fault. And these are things I've learned, and I will now update my scope of work to include that. When I called them on it and said, hey, that's missing, I got this real BS response from them. And we were 3 days away from classes starting. So my response was, and this is going to piss you off, and you're going to say a bunch of things that we all agree with, but nuts to that, I'll just go do it myself. It will be faster. But what I learned from that, being burned on that in, 3 rooms, that is now documented as a feature set in the scope of the room of the. So when I say here's the scope of the room and what it does, here's the equipment and what it's doing, and when I hand that off, if they, to your point, when they don't do it, I can say, it's in the document, I'm not paying you. However, the challenge is I still have to deliver that room on time on Monday morning, and on Thursday afternoon when that's missing, what's my solution?
I'm accountable. You are.
And to add to that timeline, a lot of times these integrators are using subcontracted labor for the jobs. And so the argument isn't with the integrator. We're now arguing with the subcontractor who has to clear it with the integrator.
There's another layer.
Another reason, Larry, to bring it in-house. The knowledge
I would love to.
You keep saying it, but this conversation isn't just us. I mean, there's a lot of people out here fighting the same battle. How do we get somebody that's not us to deliver exactly what we want? How do we make that happen?
You do what Chris said. You document, and you make a mistake. You learn from that. You redocument, and you repeat, rinse until you get what you want. That's option 1. Option 2, bring it in house. You still document, but you don't have to intensively over document to get exactly what you want.
There's actually a third option too.
Larry's got a third option.
There is a third option. You find a trusted partner that you can work with, and like Joanna did on our
disagree,
show. That works too.
Like
those are becoming fewer and harder to find.
It's short-lived because of turnover and change.
And Mark, so I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but this is a scenario you described as, hey, this integrator with whom we've worked a number of times on projects over the years seem to not be able to deliver at the same capability, the same level, the same expertise, the same sophistication that they used to. And Justin, to your last point, because of turnover. The people who were there that were reliable, that knew how we wanted it, that we were able to work with and we had built a relationship are no longer there. The same company is. So from like just a purely business standpoint, the institution is working with the exact same organization, but you're not getting the same level of service because the people aren't there.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, there's a lot of M&A stuff going on where you have companies being bought up by other giant companies, and all of a sudden the culture changes, and then everything is out the door. Like all the relationships you had are now gone. I am 100% vehemently agreeing with you. Keep it in house, Justin.
I know.
But you have to. I want you to at least acknowledge there are going to be times where I don't have control of the ability to do that. I'm gonna have to rely
that right
on
now.
Right, and
I have that right now,
and that's where we're at. And it's like,
just keep it in house, Justin.
We know we're gonna.
And we're not supporting it. We're not dealing with it. That's how we're dealing with it.
Would you want an entire building completely offline from a support standpoint?
We are having that because of the consultant thing that I'm about to talk about.
So what did you do
that
wrong?
Seems worse to me.
Right.
Well, it is, but you know what's going to happen? Well, we'll talk about it in our next segment because it fits in our next segment.
Well, I'm trying to get there. If you're listening to this and you were like, you know what, this is some stuff, I've had similar problems, shoot us a line on Twitter or LinkedIn, or hit us on our mailbag, because I want to know, like, what steps or what creative things you've possibly done to go into. And I'm not talking about one-line documentation, how stuff's put together. That we know how this stuff is put together. The hard to document stuff, the under the hood stuff. What are you using? What tools, tips, and tricks do you use to help clarify that process with maybe not even contractors, but maybe even internal to your own staff? How are you going about that stuff? Where's that stuff sitting in your document packages?
Well, it's really easy,
and that's
Mark.
an interesting point you raised.
Go ahead, Chris.
The issue is not the physical connection of things. Hey, I plugged in this device to this network, to the network switch. I plugged it into port 12. That's not a problem. It's how it was configured, whatever. I'm thinking about, then you raised DSPs. DSPs is a good point.
Yeah.
It's
probably the easier piece to see for people. Yeah.
There are a lot of people out there who do not, let me just phrase it this way, who do not understand audio. hey, the speakers are making noise, thus we're done. Great. You created one giant mix block. You ran all the student mics and the instructor mic into the same block. You dragged that out so whoever's louder wins. And that works just fine because you were in the room by yourself when you were commissioning the system, and you didn't occur to you that does. But to your point, Justin, and Mark, what you're asking here, that specific, like, hey, dummy, that wasn't documented. So now we have to say, okay, here's the documentation for how to physically connect things, but also here's how the device has to be configured. Or, and this is where, I'm a broken record at this point, I'm going to go back and do it myself because it'll just be faster for me to spend the half an hour and fix it. But that's burning my time.
Not necessarily faster, but it's done right.
Correct. Yes.
And we'll provide seed files. So I'm like, here's your basic programming for basic files. Here's a DSP. But like, we are not guarded about it.
We do that too,
share
and they failed
everything.
us. Yeah.
But we're always surprised at like the weird crap we get back. Like, I swear there's excess cycles spent in programming bloat. Like, I get all these boutique, unique, unicorn,
it auto detects what's there and then comments
like,
out the module, and but it only sees 3 displays, so we're going to hide the button. Like, knock it off.
Right. Just fucking make it, turn it on, turn it off. I don't need to jump through all this custom shit that goes out to GitHub to find out how the fuck it works. Make it work.
We want to be provided the code. Okay, here you go. Wait, I can't open the module. Oh, that's our custom internal super programmer who lives in Europe.
Cut that shit
he
out.
does all that for us.
And he's the only one with the password.
Like, then go back. I didn't.
That's
by the way, anybody
about.
listening to exactly what Jamie just said right there, check with your procurement office and check with your office of general counsel. You may have specific legal requirements that anything they do for you, touch on campus, etc., belongs to the institution, especially those of you at institutions that do a lot of research. And you may have the legal ramifications to go right back to whatever integrator pulled that crap on you and get them to cough up a password immediately. And also they will probably never do work for you again. So,
and the open source code too.
And usually it's not it's the custom module that they're hiding their intellect, the company, the integrator. And sometimes, look, the modules that are provided by said companies suck sometimes. And you have to, we all been there. You have to do your own because you want to know how it works. Or you don't need all 10 billion lines of that API, you need 4. But that's still a hang up that you don't usually talk about up front, right? And
here's how you solve all these problems. You ready? Everybody listening? You write the
hire a contract. Oh, sorry.
No. You write the specification into your bid documents or whatever, and this will solve all of it. Just plug it into the enterprise network.
Oh,
done.
And shut the enterprise network down.
All right.
It's easy.
Get your own router from Best Buy.
Yeah.
Everything will work.
Yeah. Reach out to us if you have tips and tricks. Let us know, though. I want to know.
Yeah, we'd like to know. I think we all want to get better at our own documentation. I'm working on that right now for a massive project that I have to farm out because there's 35 rooms in a single building, and I don't have the internal bandwidth to even do the programming in-house because we're doing 15 other projects simultaneously. So
I promise we'll do that.
And I have a new law school coming online at the exact same time. So
I'll do
joy. Yeah, do that
with my left hand and do the other one with my right hand.
Okay.
No problem.
Justin, I don't wish this upon you, but at a certain point when your awesome programmer guy leaves, you are up a creek, sir. So.
Nah, it's not just programming. We got
to be retired by then. He's got a set. He's got it on his calendar. I will have amassed enough fortune one day prior to my programmer leaving.
Because the programmer's going to leave, and then Justin will be like, "I'm out too. You guys are all
everybody leaves.
We're done."
Well, let's take a quick break. Come back. We're talking about the things that we were a little surprised by this year. Could be good, could be bad, but stick around for 41 seconds, and we'll find out.
As many of you know, the Super Friends have always been better received when we have more input from you. So, here's your chance. Send us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and get involved with the show. We're looking for some topics to discuss, some fellow nerds to talk to, or just general AV awesomeness to brag about. But remember, we'll probably steal your ideas. And I suppose we'd take some criticism, but that wouldn't be very nice. Anyway, drop us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and find out how quickly we ask you to join this nonsense.
So I think we phrased this topic as what caught us off guard this year? What surprised us? What did we not see coming down Broad Street, good or bad? I've got a good one. because we've heard enough bad, and everyone's going to complain about stuff. But I've got a good one.
I don't want to hear it, Chris. God damn it.
All right. Well, I'll go last to go out on a high note. But
Rub it in, dude.
I'm just saying, I was trying to think of one this morning, and I was like, you know what? We're going to be negative all the time. We just spent the last 40 minutes complaining. So
I kind of want to just listen to Mark just rant the rest of the show.
No, you don't.
No, we don't, because we just got that.
Yeah, it's going to be
more. He's
more
on fire today. Let him go.
It's going to be more. No, I'll go first.
But let's start with Mark. Mark, what caught you off guard this year?
What caught me off guard this year? Let me get my list out here.
That's a big list.
He's got his Foley
Everything caught Mark off guard.
Life got me off guard. I wasn't ready for it.
In general.
Honestly, what caught me off guard most, I didn't see coming, was the veracity and tenacity and the amount of Microsoftification I'm seeing of everything, teaching and learning, to like room systems, data structure, everything. It hit us like a ton of bricks, and I'm kind of grasping here to find out what's going to come, because it's seeping in from every crack of every wall and door and window, that it's just Microsoft everything everywhere all the time. Get in line or get out of the organization is effectively where we're going, and it's just shocking how fast and how furious it has been. I didn't see it. We talked about room systems and things like that, and maybe that's what it was, but it was like, that wasn't even the end of it. It was everything from our data and the zero trust pieces of all of it. It's everything Microsoft first here. And it kind of caught me off guard. I don't know if we were ready for that. Just the level of which it has permeated every little nook and cranny of our culture here.
I tend to agree, and I think some of it has to do with the desire to get out of multiple contracts, and because of that, the push towards who gives us the most stuff. It doesn't matter if it's the most useful stuff, but it's stuff. And I've seen it on a not to the scale you have, but I think the team's rooms thing is what's it pushes it into our hemisphere a lot faster. Because before it was tangentially, right? The PC people are like, well, we're going to do this. Or you hear rumors of, 365 everywhere. You're like, yeah, right, whatever. This is obnoxious, but okay. And then all of a sudden it's, oh, crap, it's us too. Hold on a minute.
It sneaks up on you. And it, like, before you know it, you're all of a sudden, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. It's everything, everywhere. It's all encompassing, in that it's where you store your files. It's teams that you're in all day long. It's we want to do Teams rooms. How can we do that in the classroom and conference room, everywhere? And it's on your phone. It's just everywhere. And I don't know. It's hard to get it off you sometimes. It's just everywhere.
Mark's seeing purple everywhere.
Yeah.
Isn't that their color, purple?
Is that what they are? I don't know.
Well, for Teams. But,
yeah, the color purple.
Yeah, I thought it was just going to be the Teams room thing, but it was, it was data structure. It was much deeper than just the rooms thing. It was a lot. So I'm in the thick of it. I'm in the froth of it all.
Well, I feel for you, buddy.
Well, what about you, Larry? What caught you off guard?
I'm about to get mocked, and I realize that, but I'm going to go ahead and do it.
Nah, nerd.
So, what caught me off guard? Okay. Years and years ago, the grand vision was we were going to put the entire building on a central controller and a central processor and a switcher, and that was going to handle everything. And we all learned that was a bad idea, and we weren't going to do it anymore. Well, now it seems like we've progressed from that to almost every AV over IP system out there is, let's do the entire campus
on one little widget.
One system. And and most of them, they don't even have redundancy built in to their node or whatever it is.
Sure they do, Larry. Just buy a second one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it just sits in a box and it doesn't actually help me like that. And so
you're supposed to actually plug it into the network. But
yeah.
Whoa.
Do you keep redundant power supplies in the box too?
Guard is, it seems like this is the agreed upon solution for enterprise AV systems. And there is nobody out there really doing private islands and things like that, at least for buildings and whatnot. I mean, they are, but it's like you buy the same box, whether you want to do the entire enterprise or a little one. And it's just...
Well, you know, I hear that from manufacturers as well, that this concept of, and you're right, 10 years ago, we all did the giant building-wide systems, and those are a massive frickin' failure, you know, and that there's someone yelling at their car stereo right now. No, it's fine. Hey, we got to get 3 of them. They're great.
I'm running at my business school. It's nice.
I got my badge on that.
It's always a
terrible idea.
Yeah.
But you're right. Now people have moved to AV over IP as the transport du jour, but they all want their campus-wide, even worse, campus-wide controller box to do the handoff. And I'll just to all the manufacturers out there listening right now, knock it off. I don't want that. Nobody wants that
on the network.
Right.
Well, and I think what really sucks is they build their entire infrastructure around this director box of some sort, and you're like, well, wait a minute, but if I only want like one room that has 8 endpoints, well, no, the director comes in 100, 200, 500, and infinity a license fee, but I only need 8. Oh yeah, you
need this box.
The irony is that the one company who we won't mention, but they keep sending out letters from their CIO or CEO begging you to purchase stuff. The one company who sells a box called the Director, their system actually works better without it.
Yeah,
it
which
works
is odd.
great without it. Like
I've never used the Director thing, to be honest.
No.
From some
I have 5 of them
company.
in boxes. If anybody would like the world's most expensive rack shelf,
you have redundant versions of
I keep
them.
removing.
To be
They
fair,
don't do.
I was using director as a.
I understand.
Open them when they get there.
term.
It's like, nope, don't even open that tape. Don't even cut the tape on that box.
No, I have ones that were purchased with $A+ hint, hint, that have never left their box, nor will they ever leave their fucking box, because those things are just a whirlwind of shit. And anybody out there right now who has not messed with them doesn't understand, but anybody who has knows those things make the system worse.
But that company gave us the flexibility to create that system any way we wanted to. It was awesome. Yeah.
That's probably going
If you
away
could
soon,
get it.
though.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, but that's...
Yeah, then they stopped shipping anything for 2 years, so there's that.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
fine.
but
You got it.
I find
Put back.
even the little bit less expensive ones, they all depend on this.
Correct,
Well,
and
you're
that's the
gonna put it
frustration
in
is
your
you find
whole building. Like,
Yep.
no, I'm not. And when you ask
Yes,
them,
you
like, I
are.
only want 8. Well, I need to buy one of these for every system.
Do
no,
y'all get
you
the
just
phone
need
calls?
one.
Do you all get the phone calls from these manufacturers? It's like, hey, we saw you bought 4 or 5 encoders and 1 decode, and you have the controller box. Are you sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes, I know what I'm doing.
What
It's
do
you who
like,
don't
why,
know.
why are you only buying this many devices? Because that's all I need. Well, why? I don't need your controller box. Well, you have to have the controller box. And you have this circle conversation that lasts like 20 minutes, and you get nowhere with the manufacturer, and they still don't understand what you're talking about.
So I get the weird box. Like there's certain ones I've deployed where I do put lots of control boxes in because I won't have just one. I want and they're like, you don't need to do that. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going down that road, man. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, usually my conversation is, you need the controller box. Oh, well, I'll go to that other company.
I don't
What?
need that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I can control them endpoint to endpoint, and I'm done. That's all I want.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I was expecting to get mocked more than that, so I'm pretty happy.
No, I think we're all on the same
your
page
side,
here, Larry.
man. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, I get it, Larry. I'm with
we'll
you,
back
buddy.
you up and yell at
Yeah.
people.
Do it in house. Whatever that means.
Do it in
right.
house. No more controller boxes.
Speaking of doing all your knowledge work in house, Justin, what did you learn this year? 60 seconds, go.
Yeah, so
60 seconds. That's it. Start talking.
Yeah.
so here's
you don't
what
get an hour.
happened is we're moving along. We have the college business coming up, and I get a meeting request to talk about needs analysis with the faculty. And what do I see there? A AV consultant. We haven't had an AV consultant on our campus for 15 plus years. If you're just joining us for this episode, I said that earlier.
Not after the way that last guy was run off of campus.
And now you really have to think about the culture here. So if we set up our culture to where if we need extra resources, we're going to call it integrator, and they're going to send us people, and those people are going to work with our people to provide that solution for our campus. Like, we're providing the solution, we just need to flex our manpower. That's how we flex our manpower to do capital construction.
Flexing all over everybody.
So as an integrator, what are you not looking at? You're not looking at our bid systems. You're not expecting to do full solutions anymore. We don't have that relationship with any integrator out there. So here we come with this consultant. The project was pushed out by a facility, so IT doesn't have control of it. So where are we now? Well, the consultant's designing it. They're going to support it. Whoever's going to integrate it, we're not involved. There's some emails going back and forth, which is really weird, but nonetheless, we're not really being involved to the fullest degree that we need to make this successful. So what's going to happen is this other company is going to support it for a year. We're going to deflect all the tickets. And when they fail, we're going to be asked to take it over. And we're going to end up doing the work. What does that mean? That means that we're going to turn every room into a project, and we're going to redo every room the way it needs to be done, and we're going to do the work anyway.
Is it on your Gantt sheet now? Do you already have that, like 2026, fix the problem?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we already have it. We already have it on our books, like for 2026, 2027. Like we're already planning for this. So this is how we're solving the consultant problem. Is fine. If you want to use a consultant, it's not designed by us. It's not installed by us. It's not supported by us. So that...
You're like taking a bullet and you're like, we're just going to heal. We're going to take the shot and heal.
Due to our budget structure, Larry, with the way the ramp model works, everybody has their own pot of money. They can go hire their own integrators, and they can go hire a full-time AV employee if they want to.
Hey, Justin, I got dinner at Infocom that you end up supporting the space.
Oh,
before that first year is over. No, before the first year is over, I got dinner that says you will support it.
But
no,
we're going to turn it into a project. We're going to turn it into a project because we can't support it. How can you support something?
It's a gentleman's bet. Are you willing to stand by that?
I can't support it.
That's in the notes, right?
We got it.
Yep,
It's
I can't support it.
Everybody listening, you heard it here.
Where's my programming that we were told in contract we're not allowed to have? The consultant said you're not allowed to have the programming. How are we going to support anything?
I definitely hear a lot of words, but you're going to support it, man.
No, not without a project.
There's going to be tickets.
It's already...
I'm with
emails have already been passed
I might throw a 20 spot in on this, Larry.
Hey, I'll
Derivative
put... For every one of your 20s, I'll put 1,000 down.
Oh, man.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
If you are working at Western Kentucky, we want to
I
see
only have two 20s on me. Damn it. I got a bunch of 5s. How much for 5?
the first ticket that comes through from that building.
I'll
that you
take
have to
that bet all day long. That's right.
I want to know.
You owe me $2,000 right now. It's happening.
We'll get tickets on the building. But there's
So
nothing
stay
we can
tuned for
physically
Justin's
do without the
College of
knowledge
Business
information from that integrator.
support plight.
And contractually, within the contract, in black and white, we do not have the information nor the power to support that building. Larry, whenever the integrator fails in that first year, which is what you're saying, our boss's boss has said to the higher-ups, we cannot support this without doing a project.
I'll take that 50 to 100.
Larry, just in case, that's the governor.
Yeah, but apparently that's, yeah.
That's
fine. That's where
all
it
the way
stands
to the top.
today. I'm just saying
We'll
in
check back in.
360 days
Check
or whenever,
back in. I'm telling you,
you're
that's the
buying
way
me
it's going to
dinner.
go down.
Caught you
All
off
right,
guard.
Jamie,
Give me 1,000.
like
Jamie, what do you got?
30 seconds because we got to wrap.
Yeah, no, I think good and bad, right? I think I was caught a little off guard a little bit about mid-year this year because I was just a worker bee, and then some restructuring, and all of a sudden, I'm solidly in the middle tier of middle management.
You know so much, you figure it out.
Yeah, I'm not even bottom tier of middle management. I'm the middle tier of middle management, of middle-aged,
Oh, there's
middle
like
class.
lower middle, upper middle. You're in like lower middle.
Jamie, what color is your Volvo?
I'm basically the mean.
Yeah, you're.
But no, so it's been interesting since then. It did catch me off guard. I've been at the university for a long time, and one, I wasn't necessarily interested in it, nor was anybody else interested in me leading, like officially with a title leading. They liked me leading, just not titled and paid, and they did it. So that did catch me a little bit off guard. There's been some things that, as we'll get into some other show, the learning how to be a new manager thing, but I wasn't expecting it. I'll tell you. I think you guys all know that going into June, I didn't know if I was going to be there. coming out of June, I'm like, holy crap, I got a different job.
Still here, yeah.
I think somebody wrote a book on how to be a new manager you can read, maybe.
No one's ever written a book on that.
now.
I'm sure somebody's wrote a book somewhere on
It's
that.
never
All you
happened.
need to do is read pithy sayings off the back of sugar packets or Snapple bottles and post it on Twitter, apparently.
Well, that's all I've been doing.
Facts.
All right, well, I'm going to end this on a high note, a positive note of things that I was surprised by. I was caught
Marijuana.
off guard. Yes. No, what? Make
You said you're going to end it on a high note, so
Oh, God.
Jesus, that was like 12 seconds earlier. Faster on your pithy statements. Mark, edit all this shit out. All right. So I was caught off guard by my own team's skill set. And as we've talked about on the show endlessly, I have spent the last 2 years modifying, changing, building up this team from a entirely reactionary, we just turn it off and back on, it's a bunch of black boxes, we don't know what's happening, to a team that now fully designs, engineers, installs, programs, and commissions things internally. And Justin, of course, is waving and cheering right now. And that is a major milestone to crank out. With the first one was a pretty small conference room. There was nothing very fancy about it, but it was a significant milestone. And now they're doing more projects internally. They, the team, we are doing more projects internally than the outside integrators who are on campus doing the few projects that were already contracted before we got here. And it's comforting and nice to know that when an integrator screws up a project, whether that's due to bad documentation, we weren't involved in the project, or whatever that is, that we do have the internal skill set to fix it, and it's a nice place to be, and we're doing only more and more and more of that. So that knowledge work is now firmly in-house, as well as the labor work, because we need to have that skill set anyway. So I just, it was a nice moment for me to recognize that and see that coming. Kudos to the team, and of course we got the CIO and our directors involved to give them all their kudos and everything. And I think they're all recognizing that this was a major positive accomplishment on their part. So,
I bet you, Chris, that was very motivational for them to get, rewarded for that, applauded for that. Hey, we can actually do this stuff. It's going to be challenging for them. They're going to want to take on more. That's
they
how
are,
you build
and they're
your
gonna.
internal team.
We're going to spin up this project at
gonna.
Western Kentucky to go fix their business school.
Hell yeah. I'm going to sit back and watch in my lounge chair.
Roll a Barca lounger onto campus for that. So.
That's right.
All right,
Well, there we go. You've done a whole show of stuff. We've talked about things.
and
That
what
was a
have
lot
you.
of stuff we talked about.
There was a lot of stuff. I think apologies to the listening audience, because we said that first topic was going to be about how do we write up the contracts to do that. We never actually even got to that topic. I mean,
It's too much.
This is off the rails.
we got
I
close
guess.
to it, and then we ended. So
Argue.
We'll come back to
revisit
that one. We're relying on you, listeners. Send us the how-to.
I have a feeling we'll be back on that topic soon enough.
Documentation.
But in the meantime, we're going to leave and stop talking.
Happy New Year.
Well, we've managed to ruin yet another episode of AV Super Friends Off the Rails. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com. If you complain loud enough, we might just invite you on the show.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV Super Friends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.